Lately, as a pet photographer, I get a lot of questions from my audience about what equipment that I shoot with, or what kind of light I use, what my camera settings are when I shoot, and the like. So in this video, I'm mainly going to be talking about the camera settings I primarily work with as a natural light pet portraiture photographer. This video that I'll actually share above is where I chat all about the equipment that I use for pet photography. I'll also leave a link to that video and others that you might be interested in checking out all about pet photography in the description box below. Okay, so as I mentioned a moment ago, I am a natural light pet portrait photographer. That's not to say that I don't plan on using artificial lighting and have a studio set up eventually, but for the moment, I really do prefer to work with natural light, and my standard settings are as such for most dog sessions that I shoot outdoors. Now, I should also say I shoot manually, and for client sessions, I shoot raw. So if you're watching this right now and you don't shoot manually yet, some of this might be lost on you if you haven't yet learned all about how to manipulate your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed, just as a disclaimer. Okay, so as much as possible, I love to shoot with my aperture anywhere from f1.8 to 2.2 for a very shallow depth of field. Now, I personally adore when an animal's eyes and some of their face are in focus, but then the focus tends to fall off and soften outside of that range, making whatever is in either the foreground or the background much more blurred. Now, you might notice this a lot in my imagery, especially because I sort of just melt over soft, magical, and ethereal backgrounds for both my pet and rescue clients. Now, it's also useful when I shoot through leaves or flowers or greenery, where it adds a little bit of texture and depth to the foreground, but really be completely out of focus, making sure the animal is the main focus and focal point of the image. Now, I know that aperture is ideal for portraits and closer up shots, but if I'm working to get more full body of the animal in focus, say in their environment, I will definitely change my aperture and pop it to something more like f5.6, so more of the image and their body is going to be in full focus. And this is really to give my clients just a different option to choose from their images. Personally, I don't go any higher than f5.6 most of the time because I usually need more light, given that I keep my shutter speed really high to freeze motion so that the animal's going to be in focus, especially when I'm working with adoptables who are generally really rambunctious. And with that in mind, I never drop my shutter speed lower than 1/500. Since I generally shoot with my 50mm or my 35, I have found that going any lower than that doesn't really account for camera shake, me moving around, and also those motion blur with the rescue dogs that I shoot especially. So usually I'll shoot at 1/800 if the dog is more focused and trained, but most often I keep it at 1/1000. If I'm working to photograph action, I tend to bump up my shutter speed significantly, say 1/1250, just to ensure that that animal is in focus when they're running towards me. So the camera that I currently use, the Canon Rebel T7i, which I will talk more about in my equipment video above, isn't great at capturing like super fast speed action. So I usually work more with panning, jumping, twirling, spinning action shots where I know I can freeze that action. Otherwise, my camera is just not great at keeping up with an animal running full speed at me, given my frames per second, my back button focusing, and I don't have a focus tracking system on that camera. So really, I generally only change my shutter speed or my aperture on my camera. I will only change my ISO if I absolutely must, because I don't love that noise in my images, unless it's intentional, of course, for a specific aesthetic. So I try as often as possible to keep my ISO anywhere from 200 to 400. My camera also sucks at low light situations, so if I need to bump my ISO to 800 or even, heaven forbid, 1600, the images get noisy really quickly, which is not really reminiscent of my personal style of photography. So to recap all of this for you guys, as a natural light pet portrait photographer who specializes in magical, heartfelt, and vibrant imagery, I generally keep my aperture of either 1.8 to 2.2, ISO 2 to 800, and a shutter speed of anywhere from 800 to 1000, and that's it. So obviously you might find yourself in a situation where you have to go outside of your typical shooting range depending on the light, the color of the animal, the location that you're in, the goal you're trying to achieve for that specific image. But for me personally, those camera settings at an outdoor session, especially when I do a lot of portraiture, are my base starting point. So I hope they were helpful for you. If you were just getting started in pet photography and you're looking to refine your style a bit, feel free to try these settings out and let me know how it goes in the comments below. You guys know I will be right back here with another video every week, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you found it helpful. Until next time, be kind and rescue dogs. As always, thanks for watching.